There are moments in life when we don't just feel broken, we feel invisible. Not because the world refuses to see us, but because we stop seeing ourselves. We measure our value based on the opinions of others, on past failures, on fleeting applause that fades as quickly as it comes. We hand over the mirror of our identity to those who were never meant to hold it. And in doing so, we forget how beautiful, how brave, and how worthy we truly are. Healing your self-worth is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been underneath the noise. It's about rising not to impress the world, but to embrace yourself. So today, let's begin a journey inward to the place where your power has always lived quietly, waiting for you to come home to it. Reclaim your inner voice. Your self-worth begins the moment you decide to listen to your own voice instead of echoing everyone else's. That voice, often silenced by criticism and conditioned fear, has been whispering your truth from the very beginning. It is not loud, but it is deep. It doesn't shout to be heard because it knows its worth. The question is, do you know it yet? We grow up in a world that teaches us how to perform, not how to feel. We're told to achieve, to impress, to please, but rarely to reflect. We end up mimicking voices that do not belong to us, becoming strangers to our own hearts. Healing starts when you sit with yourself, without judgment, and ask, what do I believe about me? Not what others said, not what my failures suggest, but what do I truly believe? You see, your inner voice is like a compass always pointing you back to your worth. When you ignore it, you get lost in comparison, self-doubt, and shame. But when you listen, it gently reminds you that you were never broken, just buried beneath layers of expectations that were never yours to carry. There's incredible power in silence, in stillness, in listening, not to the noise around you, but to the wisdom within you. That wisdom has seen your journey. It knows your resilience. And it doesn't ask for proof of your worth, it affirms it. The truth is, no one can validate you more powerfully than you can validate yourself. Every time you speak kindly to yourself, you rewire the pain that once told you you weren't enough. Every gentle word becomes a stitch in the fabric of your healing. This is not easy. The mind will fight back with years of conditioning. It will replay the insults, the rejections, the heartbreaks. But the more you listen to your voice, the stronger it becomes. It will outsing the echoes of doubt. You must become your own source of validation. Not because the world is unkind, but because your self-worth deserves not to be outsourced. It deserves to be rooted in you, sustained by you, celebrated by you. Reclaiming your inner voice is an act of courage. It says, I will no longer let others define me. I will no longer chase acceptance. I will no longer shrink to fit into spaces that deny my truth. And when you find that voice again, when you speak it without apology, something miraculous happens. You begin to heal. Release the guilt of being imperfect. The heaviest weight we often carry is not our failure, it's the guilt we wrap around it. We think we must be flawless to be worthy. We hide our scars, our doubts, our tears, thinking they disqualify us from love, success, or happiness. But what if your imperfections were not shameful, but sacred? We live in a culture that glamorizes perfection, but forgets that real beauty lies in being whole, not flawless. To heal your self-worth, you must learn to befriend your imperfections, not tolerate them, not fix them, but embrace them. Because they are not mistakes in your design, they are markings of your journey. Guilt tells you that you're unworthy because you've made mistakes. But healing tells you that your mistakes are part of your making. Your growth, your grit, your grace, it all came from the places where you stumbled, not where you soared. You don't have to apologize for being human. You don't need to wear a mask to feel accepted. Your vulnerability is not a weakness. It is the bridge that leads you back to your worth. When you release the guilt of not being perfect, you create space for self-compassion. And self-compassion is the medicine your soul has been craving. It softens the harsh inner critic and replaces it with a nurturing inner guide. Every time you choose grace over guilt, you give yourself permission to evolve. You stop punishing yourself for who you were and start honoring who you're becoming. That's the foundation of self-worth. You are not defined by the worst things you've done or the worst things done to you. You are defined by how you rise, how you heal, and how you choose to keep loving yourself in the process. And healing is not a destination. It's a daily decision to see yourself through eyes of love, not judgment. That shift changes everything. It's where your worth begins to bloom. So let go of the guilt. You were never meant to carry it forever. You were meant to learn from it, then lay it down and walk forward lighter, freer, and more worthy than ever. Surround yourself with mirrors, not walls. One of the most dangerous things you can do when your self-worth is wounded is to isolate yourself, because silence can sometimes sound like truth. When you're alone with negative beliefs for too long, they start to feel like facts. That's why you need people who reflect the light in you, not reinforce the lies. Healing your self-worth requires community. Not just any community, but one that reflects back to you who you are when you forget. These are your mirrors, the people who see your value even on your darkest days. The ones who remind you of your power when you can't feel it. Walls keep you safe, but they also keep you stuck. They protect your wounds, but prevent your healing. You need courage to tear them down, to open up, to let others in, because real growth happens in relationships, not in isolation. Choose people who celebrate your authenticity, not your performance. People who don't need you to be perfect to love you, who allow you to show up messy, vulnerable, honest, and still say, you're enough. But don't just wait for these mirrors to appear. Be one too. Reflect worth back to others. The more you give what you need, the more it returns to you. Surrounding yourself with healthy reflections doesn't mean everyone will understand your journey. But it means you're no longer trying to walk it alone. And that in itself is healing. You're not meant to heal in silence. You're meant to be witnessed, to be heard, to be held not because you're weak, but because you're human. Let go of relationships that distort your reflection. If someone makes you question your worth, they do not belong in the front row of your life. Honor yourself by choosing people who water your growth, not those who doubt your becoming. These are the mirrors that reflect your brilliance, even when you can't see it. Your healing accelerates when you're seen. When someone says, I get it, I've been there, and I still see beauty in you. That recognition, raw and real, is where self-worth starts to rebuild. Anchor your worth in being, not doing. We've been taught to measure our value by how much we achieve, how many roles we juggle, how productive we are. But self-worth cannot be found in a resume, a trophy, or a to-do list. It lives in your being, not your doing. When you tie your worth to what you produce, you set yourself up for burnout. Because no matter how much you do, it never feels enough. There's always more to chase, more to prove, more to perform. That's not self-worth. That's self-abandonment dressed as ambition. True healing begins when you dare to be still. When you allow yourself to be, not because you've earned rest, but because you deserve peace. Not because you finished the race, but because you exist. You are not a machine. You are a masterpiece. Even when you're resting, even when you're not growing, even when all you did today was breathe and survive. Anchoring your worth in being means you stop treating rest as a reward and start seeing it as a right. It means you learn to say, I am enough, even when you haven't crossed anything off your list. The world may celebrate your hustle, but your soul celebrates your wholeness. And that's the celebration that matters most. You were not born to prove, you were born to be, to feel, to love, to create, to exist in your full humanity. Healing your self-worth means you give yourself permission to be loved as you are not, as who you could be, should be, or used to be. Just you, as you are. That's enough. Even when you fall behind, even when you fail, even when you rest, your worth does not change. It is intrinsic, eternal, unshakable. And the moment you anchor your identity in being, the storms of life may shake you, but they will never break you. In the end, at the edge of a truth, many of us spend a lifetime trying to find the truth that your worth was never lost, only forgotten. It was never broken, only buried beneath layers of noise, fear, guilt, and performance. Healing your self-worth is not a task to complete, it is a journey back to your soul. A return to your own voice. A release of the guilt that dimmed your light. A reaching out for reflections that remind you who you are. And a courageous decision to exist not for validation, but for liberation. There's a quiet revolution that begins when you no longer beg the world to see your value, but instead choose to see it in yourself. A revolution where you are no longer enslaved by perfection, but set free by authenticity. A revolution where you finally rest in the truth that you are enough not because of what you've done, but because of who you are. That revolution begins inside you. Your self-worth is your foundation. It is the ground beneath every dream you'll chase, every boundary you'll set, every love you'll welcome, and every pain you'll rise from. And when that foundation is healed not through the hands of others, but through the grace you offer yourself, you become unstoppable. You stop seeking mirrors and start becoming one. You stop performing and start being. You stop breaking and start blooming. You don't have to wait for someone to remind you what you already know. You don't have to shrink so others can feel tall. You don't have to hustle to prove you deserve to be here. You are here. And that alone means you are worthy. So breathe, stand tall. Take your place not with apology, not with fear, not with doubt, but with the quiet power of someone who finally knows, I am worthy. I always was. And now I remember.